Hey, could I just share with you, I think, and this is true, you might not share this sentiment, and that's okay. This is part of the diversity of our church, but I believe that America is the greatest nation on earth. I believe that with all my heart, because I don't think that there's another nation where you can find as many freedoms and opportunities that both exist, both together that exists. And I would say to you that just because I believe this is the greatest nation on earth does not mean that I can't also believe that there are parts of it that are broken, right? And that be careful of people that force you into a false choice that you have to pick one or the other. They either have to celebrate its greatness or you have to lament its brokenness. And what I would say to you, both of those things can coexist in our hearts at the same time, and they coexist certainly in mine. So tonight, I want to encourage you and challenge you that we have a responsibility to make sure that as the adults and the grown-ups in the room, that there is work to be done to fix the things that are broken, so that 250 years from now, right, the people that are connected to us, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, right, the grandchildren of the children in this room, that they're going to have less lament than the ones that we carry today. I love the story that was shared. I'm going to share a little bit of it, but I want to contrast it and compare it to another famous song, which is what inspired the title of the sermon, which is called Let Freedom Ring. Did you know that in 1831, a Baptist seminary student named Samuel Francis Smith penned a song entitled My Country 'Tis of Thee? Now, My Country 'Tis of Thee is an old language way of saying, my country, it is of you I sing, if you didn't know. My country, 'tis of thee. And that actually became, if you didn't know, I didn't know this until I was doing some research for this message, it became the de facto national anthem for America for the next 100 years. For an entire century, it wasn't the Star-Spangled Banner, it was the song My Country, 'Tis of Thee, which was the actual national anthem for America. The Star-Spangled Banner, as you heard from that story, was written by Francis Scott Key. And then I love this idea about the hand of providence on his life for him to be on that ship to be able to write that poem. And then for him not to be able to leave. He was actually a part of a delegation of people that had been sent to negotiate the release of that doctor. And as the story that you heard shared, the British were concerned that this delegation had seen where their ships were positioned in the harbor and that might give the Americans some advantage. And so they were detained and they were required to wait. But it was in that place of waiting that something incredible happened that birthed a poem that would one day become the national anthem. But not for another 100 years. Not for another 100 years. And what's interesting is that when it was time to decide, right, which one, because the Star-Spangled Banner had gained so much popularity, right, and now there was a decision to be made between the two, the song My Country 'Tis of Thee is set to a tune that's very familiar to a famous British song. So like, we can't have a national anthem that sounds British, right? And so they gave the nod to the Star-Spangled Banner. So let me give you a little history. You ready for a little history? The Declaration of Independence was adopted by the Second Continental Congress July 4th of 1776. Now, the Declaration of Independence is the document that created that severed the political ties between us and Great Britain. Let me just read some excerpts from this great declaration. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among people, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." It went on to say that Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. This is right. This is in the Declaration. And to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And then they had a problem. They had a Declaration of Independence, but they did not yet have a document that would instruct how they would govern. Because the Declaration of Independence did not set up a form of government. It just created their independence from Britain. And then in 1788, June 21st, was ratified what we now know to be the Constitution. That's what sets the Constitution apart from the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence creates their freedom, but then the Constitution sets in place the parameters for how these newly freed people are now in turn going to be governed. It creates the legal framework. It consists of a preamble. It has 7 original articles, and then there are 27 amendments that are added to those 7 original articles. And then of those 27 amendments, the first 10 are called what? Come on, there's some students in the room. The Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights. Here's the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and to ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Who grew up on Saturday morning cartoons and the little song, right? The song, every time I read that, the song's right in my head. Some of you are like, I have no idea what he's talking about. That's because you're young. So let me give you a charge today, if I can. 250 years from now, may it be that every person alive, meaning 250 years from now, which means that's not going to be any of us, you understand? 250 years from now, may it be that every person alive who can trace their ancestry back to us will be the beneficiary of a Christian witness whose actions and beliefs stood in harmony with one another, right? Meaning that 250 years from now, people that can connect, right, their ancestry back to us, whether it be relationally, biologically, or spiritually, right? People that you've ministered to and had an impact on, that our example and our witness will be one where that which we declared we believe, right, is congruent, not incongruent with how we lived. Did you know that 250 years represents 8 to 10 generations of people? And that the average person typically experiences in their life 4 to 6 generations in their lifetime. Do you understand what I'm saying? It means that in your lifetime, you will likely interact with 4 to 6 different generations, some ahead of you and some behind you. Which means that when we're talking about leaving a legacy for these children in this room, 250 years from now, it's not just for them, but it's for their children's children, their children's children's grandchildren. Meaning that the impact that you have on these children will one day have an impact on their descendants because your impact helps shape their life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your example of your life is going to have an impact on them. And then they're going to have an impact on another generation and so forth and so on. Will the impact of your life be one of confusion to them because they can't figure out why you profess one thing but live another way? Or will your witness to them be one of a person who is true to what they profess to believe, no matter what the cost? Jesus' most famous sermon is the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and rightly so. But can I just tell you, my close second is found in Matthew 23, and it's called the Seven Woes. Do you know the Seven Woes? Jesus was fired up. I'm not going to read all of it for you because it's a long chapter. If you've not read it, it's like 40 verses. You should check it out. I want to read the first 7. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you. But then there's a but. But, he says, don't follow their example. He's saying, hey, the Mosaic law is trustworthy, but their example is not. Listen to what they're telling you to do that aligns with the Mosaic law, but don't follow after the example of their life, because their life lived out is incongruent with that which they teach. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. Listen to what it says. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear an extra wide prayer box with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels, and they love to sit at the head of the table at banquets and in the seat of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplace and to be called rabbi. I'm just going to stop there, right? And it continues on, right? For 39, 40 verses. And then it's broken up into 7 distinct sections. My Bible, right, is the New Living Translation. It's what sorrow awaits. But if you look at something like the New American Standard or the New King James, right, it'll have woe unto you. Right? This is Jesus giving warning and caution. And all 7 of those woes flow from the first major caution, which is one of incongruence, which is what he's saying is that true children of God, there should not be a conflict between what we profess we believe and then how we live. Not just for our sake, you understand, but for the sake of the children who are following after our example. Is your Christian witness creating clarity for the next generation, or is it creating confusion? If Jesus were to step into your world right now, would he have to say to children that are following after your example, hey, listen to what they say and follow their example? Or would he have to say to us what he said to the disciples in regards to the Pharisees? Listen to what they say that's true, but don't follow their example because they don't practice what they preach. So let's just take a peek into the history of this great nation. If the men who penned all of those documents, which is why I wanted to share it with you, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights that's in there, the preamble, if those men who penned all those documents were Jesus-following, Bible-believing, church-going Christians, and most of them were, then why was there a need for an Emancipation Proclamation in 1863? You understand what I'm saying? Is that if they believed in these things that they said, then why then did this practice of slavery continue on for so long? Because there was a Matthew 23 sickness in their hearts. If the men who penned all these documents above were Jesus-following, Bible-believing, church-going Christians, and I believe that most were, then why did we need a 19th Amendment in 1920 making it possible for women to vote? Well, right, women were basically property during the time of the writing of the Constitution because they suffered from a sickness called Matthew 23. If the men who penned all those documents above were Jesus-following, Bible-believing, church-going Christians, and I believe that most were, then why did we need a Civil Rights Act in 1964? Right? Because the sickness of Matthew 23 gets passed down from generation to generation to generation. Right? When children grow up in a world where they see incongruence between profession of belief and practice of living, do you know what it does? It gives them permission to do the same. it gives them permission to live in a place of incongruence. Right? Because what's modeled for them is that it's okay to say one thing and then do something else. But we have a responsibility to give them a different inheritance. We have a responsibility to give these children an inheritance where that which we profess to believe and how we live is always moving closer and closer together as one. If the men who penned all these documents above were Jesus-following, Bible-believing, church-going Christians, and I believe most were, then why did we need a social justice movement in 2020? Right? When you look all the way back to the 1700s, to the Declaration of Independence, and look all the way into our present, right, one of the greatest challenges that we have as people is to bring our lives into compliance with the truths that we celebrate and hold sacred. But this is part of what it means to be a disciple. This is part of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, is that as I discover the truth that is here, I'm courageous enough to look into what's in here and to examine if there is difference, if these two things are not aligned. Which is part of the beauty of community and church fellowship, is that we begin to build relationships with people who love us enough to ask us hard questions. Because there's blind spots that we also carry where people who love us can pull us aside and say, hey, this is what we believe, but yet could I just share this is something that I see? And that if you don't have people in your life that you trust to do that for you, then my encouragement to you, that make the rest of 2026 a year where you will build some trusted relationships with people with whom you want them to speak into your life. Because there are children who are watching you. There are generations that are looking at your example. There are people in this world that see your profession of faith and they see the example of your life. And may it be that when we're gone, that there will be children in this world who have grown up and they will speak your name as someone who was an exception. Someone who walked in the truth of what they proclaimed. That may it be that after we're gone, that there are going to be people who were once children around us but are now grown-ups and are becoming an example to other children. May it be that our example did not give them permission for hypocrisy and incongruence, but may it be that our example inspired them to live well, So that 250 years from now, the laments that we hold in our hearts, that list would grow shorter, by God's grace would disappear. And then only the greatness that is would remain. So let me read this song as I close. It goes like this: my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. My native country, thee, land of the noble free, thy name I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills. My heart with rapture thrills like that above. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all the breath partake, let rocks their silence break, so the sound prolong our fathers, God, to thee, author of our liberty. To thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Stand with me. Jesus. Father, as we celebrate this 250th anniversary of our nation, may it be with all of the fun and the being with friends and cookouts that people might be going to and fireworks displays, Lord, that may we find a sense of freedom to celebrate the greatness of this nation. But may it be, Lord, that at some point this month, that we would find the courage to look deep into our own hearts and to ask ourselves, is there any gap between those things that I believe and how I choose to live? That may it be that this month, this hallowed month of 250 years, Lord, that may it be that we would be courageous enough to set aside some time to ask ourselves, what is the impact of my life on the children around me? What is my example? Am I giving them permission for hypocrisy, or is my life inspiring them to deeper devotion to you, Christ, to a righteous life? May it be. May it be. In Jesus' name, come on, and everybody said together, amen.